You're listening to Quantum Revolution with Karen Curry Parker, exploring new frontiers in consciousness, science, and evolution. Join us in intimate conversations with cutting-edge scientists, spiritual leaders, artists, disruptors, and visionaries who are working towards reframing the narrative of our future by healing the rift between spirituality and science, reclaiming creativity, and laying the foundation for a new world. And now, here's your host, Karen Curry Parker.
This season of Quantum Revolution, our theme has been creativity. We tend to think of creativity as art, music, dance, and often designate being creative as an afterthought, something we allow ourselves to indulge in after we've done our real work. In our school system, our focus has shifted to exploring educational systems rooted in STEM, which stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. Notice which topic got left out of that clever acronym. There is no art in STEM. And yet, in the interviews we've conducted over this season, we've heard again and again that some of the world's most innovative thought leaders and scientists have a creative practice of some kind that supports them in being creative in their field. Logic propagates what is already known. If we're going to find the elegant solutions to the challenges facing humanity, we're going to have to cultivate new ways of knowing, new ways that are not logical, at least in their inception, and help us discover what else is possible. Being creative and cultivating a creative practice is essential for all of us. We cannot innovate without creativity. We cannot stretch the boundaries and the possibilities for the human condition without creativity. We cannot maintain our curiosity and wonder, key components of possibility thinking, without creativity. My guest today is Flora Bowley. Flora is an artist, retreat facilitator, creative catalyst, and author of 5 books, The Art of Aliveness, Brave Intuitive Painting, Creative Revolution, Fresh Paint, and Earth is Holding You. Her colorful and layered paintings are also used to design calendars, cards, planners, journals, fabric, and unique product lines sold around the world. She blends over 25 years of professional painting experience with her background as a yoga instructor, healer, and lifelong truth seeker. Flora's soulful and unique approach has inspired thousands of people to reconnect with their innate creative wisdom and to use that connection as fuel for more aliveness. Join me for this powerful conversation as we explore the role of creativity in transforming the world.
Hi, welcome to Quantum Revolution. I'm Karen Curry Parker, and I'm excited to have a really, I think, enlivening conversation today with Flora Bowley, who's going to be sharing with us information about The Art of Aliveness. That's the title of her new book. And of course, Fresh Paint, which is her second new book, so a prolific creative source. Welcome, Flora. It's nice to have you here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here with you.
We talk a lot about science and spirituality and finding the bridge between science and creativity. One of the lenses that we look at is looking at redefining for our listeners, for ourselves, what exactly is creativity. I'm always a little bit humbled when I'm in the presence of a real artist, because I'm really literally one of those people that if I manage to put clothes on a stick figure, I'm pretty proud of myself in terms of artistic creativity. So I'm always humbled with people who can express creativity in the traditional ways that we define creativity in our culture. But I'd like to hear from you as an artist and as a transformative agent. What is your definition of creativity?
Thank you. I find that conversation so interesting too. And so I am a painter. That's my main medium. But to be totally honest, what I'm most interested in and inspired by right now is how creativity can really be this much broader experience, and how it's really not limited to people who are doing those traditional mediums like painting and writing poems and whatever else we do when we think of real, like you said, real artists. My life's work has really become about just reminding folks and giving permission for people to experience their own forms of creativity, and reminding that creativity can look so many different ways. And so really moving outside of those structures that maybe people think of as creative practices. So for me, it's really anything that opens up our senses, allows us to drop into the present moment. I'm a big proponent of learning about and getting more comfortable with change and allowing things to change and getting more comfortable with improvisation and thinking outside the box and just coming into that place that, we all were kind of forced to come into these last years of just keeping our knees bent, staying open, letting things go when they're no longer serving us, bringing new things in, getting out of our habits, and just seeing the world in this, I guess, more sort of alive way. It's so easy to move through life in a way that is driven by our to-do lists and the things we have to get done and just sort of our habitual patterns. And so my creative practices really are about sort of shaking that up and just opening up and finding the magic really in simple moments. And I often use the phrase like seeing with the eyes of an artist, even if you're not someone that does participate in those traditional art forms. It's like, can you even just move through the world with the eyes that an artist might see with? So I could go on, but that's a little snippet.
I love that. I love that. And so what I hear you saying is that you're using art and a traditional creative medium. And I know you do this because I've seen you do this in workshops and trainings. You tend to sequester people away into a room covered in paper. And and I hear lots of woohoos happening behind the closed doors. So you're using traditional creative mediums to bring people into a greater state of aliveness. Talk us through your process. Like, let's say I'm walking in and stick figure Karen, who's like never painted in her life. How do you use that as a medium to wake somebody up to their innate aliveness?
Well, I have lots of tricks up my sleeve. One of the things that happens when we walk into a space where there's blank canvases or there's that beginning, there's so much anxiety in the room because a lot of people who come to my workshops have actually never painted before because they're beginner friendly. And so, one of the things I love to do is to get people to close their eyes. And I also use music as a real tool in my workshops. So, people will close their eyes, we'll have a song going. We're often using our fingers instead of brushes. We're often using both of our hands versus just our dominant hand. And all of these things invite people into a more feeling state. Because what I have found is that when we're thinking too hard, when we're trying too hard, when we're trying to make it look quote unquote good or right or perfect or pretty, any of those things, we really get in our own way. We're really stopping that raw, wonderful, intuitive, creative force that we have. And so by closing eyes, putting on music, moving our bodies, so it's not just coming from our hand, but it's actually coming from the center of our body. We're swaying our hips and we're moving to the song. And then we're just letting the final little expression come through our fingers with paint or even with just markers or whatever it is, and then we open our eyes and we look around the room, and what we see are these really alive, really different. Everyone's got their own sort of innate style of expression. And people are always really surprised at how actually beautiful things look. And then from there, I work with a layering process. And so there's a lot of freedom in that. I think that's a really important piece of my process is that it's not about having an idea in our heads and trying to execute that idea onto the paper or the canvas. To me, that feels like a lot of pressure and there's a lot of room for things not working out. And so instead, I say just clear the expectations, clear the need for it to be any certain way. Because when we do that, all the possibilities come into the room. When we don't have a plan, anything is possible. And so it's about moving colors, adding lines. I always use the phrase trying things on because if you try it on and it doesn't look the way you want, with my process, as long as the paint dries, you can change it. You can cover it up. You can make a whole different decision. We're often turning our canvases upside down and on all their sides. So it's just bringing us back to that present moment and back to the question of what feels alive here, what's working, how can I work with what's working. And sometimes that just means like 1 square inch. You might just be like, well, I really like this one little part of red. And it's like, great, let that be your guide in instead of that sort of traditional art school mentality of looking for what's not working, which is also something that I feel like we're trained in life through all of the capitalism. And it's like looking for what's not working in your life. What do you need to fix? And that can take you down this road. And I'm trying to just like bring us back to this place of finding the things that are already working and how can we go in that direction. And again, there's a lot of freedom in that, and there's momentum in that as well. People can never believe what they painted at the end because we never had the plan. And then all of a sudden, there's this thing that happened through layers and change and improv. And it's like, wow, you did that. And you never could have planned it. And that's just one of those many life lessons that are sort of wrapped up in this process is like, you really don't know what the future holds, but we can take one step at a time and we can stay connected to what feels alive and we can be willing to let go of things that aren't working. And eventually we'll find our way.
That's beautiful. And I will say again, I've been in the building when two different workshops of yours have happened. And the beaming that happens when people come out with their painting, like, I did this, is really quite beautiful. So, what do you think blocks people the most from their full creative expression and their aliveness?
I think there's a few things. I think creative wounds that people have experienced through a teacher telling them they couldn't do it or just not being encouraged in their younger years towards anything creative. I think that's in there for a lot of people. And then there's the inner critics and the perfectionism and the need for things to be so good, or if it's not, I'm not going to do it at all. That mentality, I think, really gets in the way. And so those are some of the things that I really work to soften the edges of. So we're really in my workshops, we're working on speaking gently to ourselves. I'm always telling people like you're amazing just for being in the room. You're trying something new. Would you really expect to pick up like a violin, for example, and just play a beautiful song? It's like no, you know, we're here to practice. Painting is a practice. And there's so much learning that happens in every single painting we do. And so I'm always reminding folks of that. And just, I have this theory that anytime we're engaging in creative practices, it's time well spent. It's time well spent as a human being because creativity is our nature. It's how we came in, it's what we're full of. And so if we can be in the energy of creativity, whether it's free form writing or movement or moving colors around or writing, I call them poem-ish, like a poem-ish. You know what? It doesn't have to be a perfect thing. It's like just get the wheels turning. It fills a certain cup in ourselves. And it also shows us that we have creative capacity. And I think that's one of the things that is getting in the way is that some people just have decided, I'm not creative. I'm not one of those people. And sure, you might not be one of those professional artist people because that's a choice of a career path. What I'm here to, I hope, inspire is just to remember like, no, I have this just as much as anyone has this. We're all creative beings. And so I like to just give people easy, fun, empowering invitations into those practices because what I have seen from working with thousands of people is that this light bulb that goes off at some point when people remember, oh my gosh, I do have this. And not only do I have this capability, it makes me feel good to do it. It's actually a wellness practice and something that brings meaning and brings joy and brings fulfillment and gives us a place to put all that is stirring inside of us. Creativity gives us a way to put it somewhere. I get really lit up when I see people in that remembering place. Creative practice to me just means that we're not necessarily driven by the end result or we have to be making this big masterpiece, but that we can just be engaging in the principles of creativity and that we're practicing those things. So for me, that's some of the things I've mentioned learning how to get comfortable with change, learning how to listen to our intuition, and getting really connected. Creativity gives us a beautiful opportunity to practice that. Reflect on how much you learned in just a couple hours of engaging in a creative practice about yourself, about your life, and then imagine making that a regular thing. And people can just go, wow, it's true. This has been so potent. How many things in life do we really get access to that are basically free? It can just be pens on paper, it can be simple stuff, it can be taking a walk with your camera, with your phone, and seeing and going on a little photo scavenger hunt. Like, it can be really simple stuff, but there's this potency to it. And it is such a give back. It gives so much if you just give a little bit of energy to it.
We always like to ask questions about how your work has the potential to transform the world. So, how do you think the world would be different if we all engaged in a creative practice?
I love that you asked that. I really think creativity is going to be at the core of what can change the world, because clearly we're in a place where a lot of systems are crumbling. A lot of things are no longer working here on planet Earth. And in order to reimagine a new way, honestly, of just being here and being together, it's going to take creativity. It's going to take imagination. It's going to take the ability to dream something that's never been before. And I think artists are people that do that. That's what we do. We're always taking bits and pieces from lots of different places and coming up with new solutions and new ideas. I think as we move forward into these coming years and just all that we're being faced with, creativity needs to actually be a priority. Doing these practices that might seem frivolous or extra or just for fun, what they're actually doing, if we look a little deeper, is they're strengthening the muscles of resilience, and they're strengthening the muscles that are the exact same tools that we actually need to survive a very rapidly changing world.
Beautifully said. That's the best description of why someone thinks creativity is important that I've heard in a long, long time. Your new book is The Art of Aliveness. Talk to us a minute about what is your new book about?
Yeah, it's a really different kind of book. My previous books all had a lot of photos and a lot of painting prompts and very colorful. And this new book, The Art of Aliveness, is just words. And it's a lot of my personal stories and the philosophies that I have gleaned through, oh gosh, like 30 years of painting, intuitive painting that I've been engaged in. I really can honestly say that my painting practice has been my greatest teacher as far as how to live my life. And the insights I've received through my creative painting process have just, I wouldn't live the same way that I do or be the person who I am without that. And so I just gleaned all those little lessons and philosophies and stories to support them that I've gathered over the last 30 years and put them into this book, The Art of Aliveness. And so the idea is that you don't have to be a painter or even someone that does art, but if you're someone who is interested in feeling more alive and maybe connecting to your creativity and in ways that you haven't even thought of, I hope that this book will inspire and support and just remind you that it's all there for you and that it doesn't need to be complicated or hard or intimidating or any of that.
Beautiful. And you have a second book too that you just came out, Fresh Paint.
Yeah, that book came from just years of noticing people struggling to find their own style within my painting process. And so I put together a book that really supports a style seeking adventure. And it's based on the idea of painting 100 small paintings on paper. And so that kind of circles back to what we were talking about with the creative practice and just giving yourself something to keep showing up to. And that's very true when it comes to developing a style, is that you really just have to do a lot of the work and dig deep into your internal landscape and be noticing what's inspiring you outside and swirling it all together into something that's really unique to you.
Beautiful. And you just are on the cusp of moving into your retreat center and getting ready to launch retreats in a bit. Yes.
Yes, actually, we're recording this on the day that we get the keys to a property that I've gone in with a group of people to acquire. It's an hour from Portland, Oregon, 20 acres in a really beautiful place where I'm going to be mostly living and hosting my Art of Aliveness retreats, my painting retreats, and lots of other people's retreats. Very exciting new chapter. I'm a big believer in getting connected to the earth and to the natural world and how supportive that is in any kind of transformational process. So to have a space that feels like what's holding us is nature and just quiet and beauty. And to get to do all of these practices there feels like it's going to just take everything to a next level. So very grateful, very excited.
Congratulations on that. I look forward to hearing more about what you're doing out there to be able to just retreat and descend into that creative practice. Flora, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm going to have to really chew on your exploration and your explanation of creativity and why it's so essential. One of the things we've been talking about, and I was just marveling as I was listening to you, we do a lot of contemplations around the future and what's up, what's coming next. And I find it not coincidental that your message, even though it's coming from the viewpoint of an artist and a thought leader, is very similar to the messages we've been hearing from Harvard astrophysicists and quantum physicists and all kinds of thought leaders all over the world in all kinds of different creative endeavors. Pretty powerful stuff. The Art of Aliveness and Fresh Paint, as well as Flora's other books on Amazon. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
We can't create when we're stressed, panicked, overwhelmed, traumatized, or in any way disconnected from our authentic self. This isn't just an argument for adding art and creativity back into the classroom. This is science. When we create from a place of pressure, in pursuit of some kind of metric that gauges our value, out of fear, with hard, stress-inducing deadlines, or with some kind of a reward that further gauges our value, it literally shuts down the creative parts of the brain and forces us to find solutions from inside the same old box. We have to have a daily practice that brings us back to our natural creative state, that allows us to drop into that place where we see the world through the lens of curiosity and wonder, where colors flow, movement, music, and narrative are integrated into the warp and the weft of our daily life. Without creativity, science is just repetition, propagating the same ideas over and over again, limiting the questions we ask, and closing us off to the possibility of finding the elegant solutions to our challenges. Without art, we can't tap into our creativity. If art changes everything, the very first thing it changes is our fundamental relationship with ourselves and our ability to move from inspiration to fulfillment, from idea to innovative solution. Flora encourages us to look at the art of our life, to explore how we can use creativity to unlock and unbind ourselves from old ways of being and thinking. I hope that this interview has left you contemplating the role that creativity plays in your daily practice. I hope that you'll explore new ways to break free from the trap of hard metrics that put you in boxes instead of inviting you to create your own world. If you'd like to explore the unique and vital role that you play in weaving the tapestry of life, I invite you to visit www.quantumalignmentsystem.com and discover who you are and the unique, vital, and irreplaceable role that only you can play in the cosmic plan. I'm Karen Curry Parker. Thank you for joining me for Quantum Revolution.
Thank you for joining us on Quantum Revolution with Karen Curry Parker. We hope you found this conversation inspiring. For more information on how to change your world and to hear more about our guest today, visit quantumrevolutionpodcast.com. Make sure you follow us on your favorite podcasting platform so you don't miss a single episode of Quantum Revolution. We'll see you next time for some more groundbreaking conversations with Karen and her guests. How will you impact your world today?